Across Canada, municipal politics is often described as the most accessible form of government. It's the level closest to the people. It's where community meets decision making, where local leaders step up to shape the places that we call home. But increasingly, it's also becoming a space where harassment is not just present, it's persistent, it's personal, and for many, it's escalating. From hostile emails and social media attacks to intimidations in public spaces, and even people showing up at councillors' doors. The tone of political engagement at the municipal level is changing dramatically. And for women in particular, that change can come with a heavy toll. One that impacts not only how they lead, but whether they choose to lead at all. Now, today on Municipal Affairs, we're having an honest and unfiltered conversation about that reality. And we are joined by three municipal leaders from across the country. Councillor Melanie Loyns from Stony Plain, Alberta, Councillor Natalie Labbee from Greater Sudbury, Ontario, and Deputy Mayor Alison from Flin Flon, Manitoba. Together, they will share their personal experiences with harassment, how it has affected them, how it has evolved over time, and whether they believe it is getting worse. This is a conversation that will be raw. It will be candid, and it is necessary. Because behind every headline, every council meeting, and every public decision, there are people, and the cost of public service is changing every day. So whether you're thinking about entering municipal politics, already serving, or just wondering if it's the time to step away, this discussion and roundtable matters to you. Because this is Municipal Affairs. Thank you, everyone, for sitting down with us and talking about this. I don't want to say challenge, but this issue that has become sort of the, I don't want to say norm, but it has kind of become normalized in our society, unfortunately, harassment of our municipally elected officials, and particularly harassment of female politicians. Now, before we get into the crux of the interview, I want everyone to just go around and quickly, if you can, describe how harassment has impacted your own municipal career and how it has impacted your day-to-day life since entering into the municipal arena, starting with Melanie, if possible.
Definitely. So I've learned that in this job that I need to have thicker skin than I ever thought possible, as well as sometimes I do just take things with a grain of salt and say that's their problem, not mine. Unfortunately, that's not really the mentality you should have. But I've also learned that there's been no limitation on harassment, and it doesn't come from any particular type of person. I've received it from every gender, profession, age group. I've had it from other government level officials. Um, and it seems to be, like you said, the quote unquote norm. I love my job. I wouldn't change it for the world. I love what I stand for, what I represent, and I'm proud to be here to be a role model for other women and young girls. I have an 8-year-old daughter at home, and she's proud to say her mom works for the town, and I hold that to the highest esteem, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And talking about this, hopefully, will make it a better day for her tomorrow than what I have to deal with today.
Alison, for yourself, can you describe how harassment has impacted your municipal career?
Um, Harassment has affected me way more than I actually could have even envisioned. I think that is one thing definitely missing is that whole component. People ask about time commitment. They don't ask about, how it's going to affect your life personally. I'm from a small northern community, so harassment has really affected me in a way of how I move on a daily basis, even. So where am I going? Am I going to go to this social event or not? People can take pictures out of context and post them. Who do I talk to? What do I post personally? And as fellow counselor has said, Melanie, I have 2 adult children, and there have been things said online personally about me that have really affected them. And I've had to really coach them and say, like, please don't comment. That we can't control what people are saying. I also, though, believe that I can't control what people are saying, and that's not for me to think about when I'm doing my job. I'm very privileged to represent the city of Flin Flon, which I love dearly. And I will say this one thing about harassment, it has not affected me in a way negatively about my decision-making skill. I've been asked that question before, and it doesn't. I will not back down from what I believe is best for the community. I don't change how I'm looking or voting or how I'm publicly advocating or doing the actual job. It has changed how I run through or live my daily life. I've lost personal friendships. I've lost family members over online harassment. So there is a negative part of it, but I definitely feel that I'm going to show up regardless of what somebody says about me online.
Natalie, now you and I had chatted in the past about your experience with harassment, and I'm not gonna sort of tell people to go listen to that show, but in that conversation that you and I had, you talked about how someone actually showed up to your own personal home as an elected official. So I've got to ask the sort of follow-up question to what I've just asked them is, how has that impacted your role as a municipally elected official?
It's still before the courts, Chris. So unfortunately, there's still a backlog, and it affects me every day because the person who was charged by the police for criminally harassing me is still very brave in the comment sections and the newspapers and attacking me in my full-time career outside of politics, which is not okay. Similar to the other ladies' stories, I'm not backing down. I know with conviction that the role that I'm playing as a Ward 7 councillor here in Sudbury is very important one. I am seen as a trailblazer and very much a vocal advocate for just sharing positivity, quashing misinformation. There's a lot of rage baiting happening. Silly season in Ontario, Manitoba, I'm sure is what it's called. People just wanting to get people as angry at the city as possible and then say, hey, vote for me, I'm going to make it change. For me personally, echoing all of Alison's statements, just being more mindful about what I'm posting online and when, about my whereabouts. I'm often not going online into my social pages announcing events. I actually had a different gentleman show up at an event specifically because he knew I was going to be there and wanted time with me, which was a little bit off-putting. But it doesn't consume my everyday. It does take up a lot of space at times when I have some downtime. People will send me things and send me screenshots of things that people are saying. It's unfortunate that some people just feel like that's what their purpose in life is. They really need to get a new hobby. But it's not making me back down. People have asked me before, are you going to run again? Absolutely. The work I'm doing is important. I am a strong voice, and it's not going to deter me. And, I think gone are the days where we need to say that female politicians or politicians in general need to have bigger shoulders. It's not part of the job description to be harassed. Want to critique our votes? Absolutely. But if you're going to go and body shame me online or make up stories about me, just to go against my character and make people want to second guess my leadership and the fact that I lead by example, it's on them. But at the same time, it is hurtful and impactful in different ways, but it definitely isn't going to make me back down.
Alison, for yourself, since you were first elected to where we are today having this discussion, have you noticed changes in the tone or frequency of harassment over the course of your career? And on the flip side of that, I'm not sure how in depth we're going to go with you, but I can imagine being one of the few lone female officials at your council, you probably are seeing it a little bit more than your fellow male colleagues. And I am not trying to put you on the spot to answer that question first off, but you're the first one up in this session. So do you see that the tone is more impactful or more targeted toward female politicians over their male counterparts?
Oh, well, simply put, yes. I wanted to comment quickly on something Natalie said as well about people showing up to your places and how they think that they have the authority to do that. I run a nonprofit, and I've had a community member show up screaming and yelling in front of people that are seeking out services. The impact or the harassment ebbs and flows like anything. It really depends on, for my experience, what's going on right now, because election is in 6 months. Exactly what Natalie said is happening. People are posting things and disparaging myself and that they're going to do better without actually talking about any of my politics or any of my governance or any of my advocacy for the community. There's no mention at all of what kind of job I'm doing and how good of a job I'm doing, to be honest. And not having to apologize for saying that. The harassment in the beginning was really strong with me. I came in with a little bit of controversy behind me due to some history with the city. I've worked my butt off to prove that I'm here for the right reasons. And then evacuation really reared the head of online harassment for myself, as I put myself out there doing video updates daily, and quickly when 50,000 views are happening, I was in utter shock that we were in such dire straits and trying to save our community and working, 16-hour days. And people were more concerned with the fact that I didn't have makeup on, or what did my hair look like, or why was I sitting in my truck. That attacking my intelligence and threatening me physically. They wanted to slap me about the return date. My male counterparts, I've been in meetings and actually been called a bitch at a table about an opinion that I had. And I was giving an opinion about a job that I thought somebody else could do. And I said, well, what about this person? And another male employee looked at me and said, well, why do you got to be a bitch so much? And they're busy enough. Not one person said a word at that table. Not one. And then during some meetings, during evacuation, same thing. I was told to give my head a shake, that I was an idiot. During these meetings, I never lost my cool once. And to the flip side of that, I've been in multiple meetings with my male counterparts who I love dearly and treat me with tremendous respect. However, they have lost their cools. They have been inappropriate, and not one word is said. So I very much feel it, not necessarily from my council, but from the other people sitting at the table or community members. I've never heard anybody else attacked for what they're wearing, how they're speaking, what their hair looks like. Try to disparage their marriage or talk about their husband. None of my counterparts ever actually experienced that, but it ebbs and flows. And right now the head is out because of election. I've had people post pictures of my house, my address. I've had property damage. Yeah. And we're in a small town, so people they know me.
Natalie, for yourself, and then we're going to go over to Melanie on this one. In the same vein of what Alison was just talking about, have you ever felt your credibility or authority was undermined due to, and I hate to be the guy explaining this, but due to your gender and the harassment that female officials receive, that people may go, we're not going to go talk to you because you're too emotional because of your gender? Have you ever experienced that?
Not to the extent that Alison was sharing. Thankfully, here in Greater Sudbury, we have an amazing mayor. So I think leadership at the top is a really good indicator of the way that women are welcomed into this space at any table. So I've been very fortunate in that regard. In my ward, I have 5 communities that I oversee that are very unique, and several of them are one way in and one way out communities, so very isolated. And I found that residents were a little bit hesitant to talk to me about issues that considering their roads, for instance, because what is a woman going to know about road maintenance? And, you know, I really had to do my homework. When we're elected, you know, I think we come with a certain skill set to just be good governance, provide good governance and leadership, and just have the courage of stepping up in the first place. But the learning curve is vertical in municipal government. So I think that if we're wanting to be credible in any way, we have to really be committed to doing our homework and getting informed and using as many of the tools as you can with previously elected, you know, colleagues on your team to kind of help you through that in the initial months, and also building a rapport with key staff that can help you with messaging and information sharing outside of what you're learning in committees. And I think that's where the shift happened with me, is that I did build those relationships and those alliances, and I had support in those relationships, building those relationships and the common ground with those key people who were really part of helping me get informed, so that when I was talking to residents, especially men, and even speaking up online and countering misinformation or disinformation online, I don't need to use ChatGPT to be credible. I actually have lived knowledge, and I've done the work, I've done the homework, and I know that people in my ward and across the city recognize that about me.
Melanie, for yourself, same question. How has harassment affected you in that people may not want to come to you because, oh, you're a female, you may be emotional? And with you talking about your younger daughter just in the first opening question, how has that harassment spilled over to how you interact personally with females, including younger females who may want to enter into the political arena at one time in their life, and they say, well, I see what Melanie's going through. I wouldn't want that for me, so I'm not going to even approach that with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, definitely. I've gotten everything from I'm not intelligent because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I made that choice 13 years ago when I had my oldest son, and I left provincial politics where I worked at the Ledge Building under Minister Mel Knight. I worked within communications. I worked for with the session binders and things like that. So politics was always a conversation that I enjoyed. It's always been an industry I've loved being in. But yeah, I get discredited quite often. It's, you're a stay-at-home mom, you don't know what you're talking about. How would you have any intelligence on anything when you didn't go to post-secondary until later in life? So I sit here and again, I do the research, I find the information. I have an amazing mayor and town council and a town manager that when I was first elected, if I had questions, their doors were always open. It was always able to say, hey, I don't quite understand this process, or how is this working? Can you help guide me? So I've surrounded myself with a team of people that have given me the tools in the beginning to know where to go and how to get there. And I tell girls, young women, even people my own age, like, harassment is something that we honestly aren't unfortunately going to get away from, but freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence. And a colleague of mine tells me that all the time when he hears some of the things that I get told. And he says, remember that, like, you are a person and you have a voice, an equal voice at that table. You're not subpar because you're a female. If anything, he goes, people probably should listen to you more because you have different lived experiences. And it's through that that allows me to realize that the different values we bring to that table are what should be celebrated and not discredited, right? I'm not a business owner. I am not born and raised in the town that I represent, but I have connections outside of our town, right? Like I said, I came from provincial politics. I've known ministers and MLAs growing up and built relationships over years that my council some days is still a shock that I can just go up to a minister and say, hey, I need 5 minutes. Do you have it for me? Right. And if they don't have it, then maybe they'll have it in an hour from now and we'll go and sit down and talk. Right. But so much of this job is building those relationships and those connections and being able to rely on them. So instead of being a hindrance because I'm a female and that, hey, I'm really good at talking, I use that as an asset and a good thing for my community. And unfortunately, I don't see our residents seeing that all the time. but I know full well that at least my council does. And if they are able to back me up on it, they do.
Just on that note, just for a second, I want to pick up on what Melanie just said, but I want to start with Natalie on this question because I think it's an important one. What role does your fellow councillors play in helping you address harassment at the council level? Because we all see the stuff that is posted online, and I would love to be able to call out every single jackwad, I'm going to call them, because I can't use the A word on the show because it's going to be broadcast on public television. But how does your council play into helping you address the harassment that you are seeing online, in person, or do they have a role? Because I don't want to sound like the guy in the room, but when I see someone getting attacked, I want to step in and help. But there's an assumption that if I'm going to step in, oh, it's the man coming in to save the woman, and therefore it's going to look like the woman can't solve her own issue. So with that being said, what role does your fellow counselors play, the ones who may not receive the harassment that you do on a regular basis, in ensuring a safe workplace and job that you have so strived and so honorably been elected to do? Natalie?
So that's a really great question because again, it stems from the relationship building. When I first got elected, shortly after, there was some issues that were coming up, and I spoke up. And one male counterpart didn't react very favorably to me questioning and challenging him on some things, and inevitably was part of filing 2 integrity commissioner reports against me. I had some staff and the integrity commissioner and local media just jump all over that, dragging me through the news for 8-9 months until it was resolved. And during that process, all of the other stuff was happening with the harassment from the public and the criminal harassment that was growing and then turned into charges being laid by the police by this one individual. But initially, when I started talking about it to my colleagues, some of the other ones who had been on council for several years just said, you know what, just ignore it. Do what we do. We just throw those emails in the junk pile. It's better off, especially as a woman, not to say anything because then we're being, portrayed as weak or hysterical, or just not cut out for the job and those kinds of things. So by speaking up, you're actually making things worse. So it's probably better if you just kind of let it go. And that just didn't sit well with me.
Sorry to interject because I'm going to throw him under the bus here. I apologize, Councillor Graham from Canmore. Literally, I posted about this roundtable discussion, and a councillor from Alberta said, just block them and move on. You just ignore them. But sometimes you can't ignore this stuff because in some cases, they show up to your places of work. They show up to your home where you should feel the safest, and it is a continuously ongoing issue. I've heard some people where a person has come into the then Reeves house and literally just walked through the front door when she wasn't there and her child was there and asked, "Where's your mom? I want to talk to her right now." So sometimes you can't ignore it, right? Councillor?
Correct.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Continue. I apologize to interrupt there.
No, that's okay. And I'm just 3 years in, I'm just not having any of the BS, to be honest. I'm not going to be anybody's social media doormat. I am not going to avail myself to someone that's continuously berating me. Laugh emojis, disparaging comments, you get blocked, because if you're a resident of mine and you absolutely need to get a hold of me, there's other ways of communicating with me other than through those avenues. But I'm protecting my peace and my mental wellness at this point. Further to what you were mentioning, just a couple days ago, the mayor of Pickering, Ontario, also a female, had a person hovering, a very right-wing, person hovering in a parking lot at nighttime following a meeting and following her to her car, demanding time from her like that. You don't know who that person is. That were they trying to do something worse to you. Like, it's not okay to feel unsafe in the work that we do. So I've aligned myself with some other counselors on my council that are there to support me, encouraging me. You know, the one thing that this criminal harassment and the integrity commissioner investigations did was put me very much more in the forefront. As a result, the local media really have taken to me even more so than they have before. I'm involved in the nonprofit world as well, and that's always put me in the forefront in the media, but they often come to me instead of others on council, knowing that I am going to answer my phone. I'm going to make myself available for those interviews. So it's actually kind of benefited me in some way. But just the emotional and mental toll that it brings you through to that process is, you know, sometimes not worth it. Our families, our spouses, friends, people that know us, it affects them too. It's not just us, but I've definitely been able to align myself and find some support with some key counselors, and it's really been helpful.
Alison, I saw you nodding your head as Natalie was talking there. I'm just going to follow up with what Natalie said and ask you, how does your council help you address those harassments that you have seen? Because during a wildfire, I can imagine this is probably not what you want to focus on, but it is what you saw when you were posting these videos and updating your community about what was going on in your community when everyone was evacuated. So what role does your council have in helping you address what you see online and when people show up at your place of work, like you talked about?
Personally, I have to say my council and mayor have been amazing. I've had support from them always. We are fortunate as well to have a mayor that really has had a chair for everybody at the table, and not just the chair. It's okay to have a chair, but you need the space to be able and have that space protected and provided to you to be able to participate. And so we do have a mayor that very much opens up that chair for everybody on council, whether you're a woman or a man. So very fortunate that way. We have taken the stance, which I don't necessarily agree on, of no comment. We don't comment on anything. We have a zero social media policy. We don't want to get in the weeds with people. However, at some point, things have to be addressed. So at one point, I was speaking to the RCMP because I felt that my safety was being questioned, especially with our address being shown and people coming to where I run a nonprofit. But I do agree with Natalie, putting myself out there and being available has put me in a different light than my counterparts. So the media has been very kind to me, and the majority of our community is kind. What I do see happening at times, which I'm happy to see, is people not tolerating or calling people out for their bad behavior online. So other people stepping in and saying, hey, that's not okay, or that has nothing to do with the fact if they know what they're doing or not doing. And so I really appreciate that. There definitely is more that I feel as a council we could say publicly. We encourage people to come to our council meetings to have those conversations. If you want to talk about policy or bylaw or budget, I'm going to give you the time that you require and deserve. That's my job. We encourage everybody to come to our council meetings so we don't have these backdoor conversations through email or social media. Like, nothing's going to come out of that. Our council has been very good at posting and saying, please come to meetings. We'll talk to you. Our emails are available. As Natalie said, my cell phone is available online as well. So there are avenues that we are trying to encourage people. But it's interesting. You can get 1,000 amazing comments and then two negative comments pop up, and it's just like wildfire. And it gives space in your head that you really don't have room for when you're trying to help a community, when you do have best intent. It's not an easy job, never mind having somebody harass you. It's difficult to put yourself out there. And I feel like during council meetings, we do have support. We are way more public than our previous administration. We try to get the proper messaging out. I think that's part of the way we try to get around it. So we go on the radio once a week. We record all of our council meetings now to try to allow that space for people to see what the actual truth is and then to form their own decisions. But what I've come to learn is it doesn't matter how much information you give some people. If they don't like you or don't agree, they are going to just sit in that and push it forward.
Melanie, for yourself, and then I'm going to turn to sort of the future and what harassment has in store for us. But looking at the town of Stony Plain, which I know quite well, and I know your council quite well, how have they helped you deal with the role of harassment in your day-to-day life?
It's been, I'm going to say, mostly positive. I've had a couple of colleagues that say, oh, you're just being emotional, it's fine. And I've had other ones that say that's completely unacceptable. There was an issue with a minister making comments about me being at an event, questioning why I'd be there, saying it was only for a paycheck. I'll make it very clear, my council doesn't get per diems. So when we show up to things, it's because we actually want to be there. I was asked by my mayor to attend on his behalf, and this minister chose to critique not spending time with my family. Again, it was only for a paycheck. He wouldn't have wasted his time, things like that. A couple weeks later, my mayor went to a very similar event and no questions were made. Both of us are married. Both of us have children. It was just because I was female and my mayor is not. When I brought this issue up to my colleagues, very quickly, they were upset about it. And I said, am I emotional? And they said, definitely not. Like, this is not okay. And this needed to be dealt with. This minister did end up apologizing through my mayor to me for if his words were taken inappropriately. It's an apology. We'll take it.
An apology that shouldn't have happened because it shouldn't have been said in the first place, but that's just my own personal opinion. And if anyone wants to write, if that minister wants to write me and be on the show and talk about that, happy to have him on the show.
Well, and exactly. But I've also received comments, again, that I've shared with certain colleagues that I've built relationships with, that my family has built relationships with, because they know when we have to go to town or we're at events that that person has my back. And so I think it's important. Natalie talked about how it doesn't just affect us directly. It's our family, it's our children, it's anybody in our inner circle. And so I do think building those internal relationships outside of just colleagues definitely makes a difference. And I'm very grateful that I have those relationships with them, because even on the worst day, I know I can call them up and say, hey, you know what, just walk me through this, talk me through this, because it's not okay. And I just am at my wit's end, and they've dealt with it in a different manner, right? And so they're able to be a voice, be an ear, and allow me to express my feelings or my concerns and how should I move forward from something. Not always a solution-based problem, but at least I can voice my opinion and help my own mental health.
Just recently, and this is just because this is the reason why this question came about, I recently watched a documentary called Inside the Manosphere, which is on Netflix. It's with Louis Theroux. It's about the alpha male concept that women should be subordinate to their male counterparts and so on and so forth, and they should stay at home. Are we seeing a rise of that type of mentality here in Canada, and women are the natural targets for that type of behavior?
You know what, Chris, I'll entertain that.
And tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to come up with a way to say, are men stupid? Are we stupid? Because I think, and this is my opinion, and please send it to me because I do not want to get more harassment for these three amazing councillors and deputy mayor. But the majority of the comments that I see about harassment towards female elected officials are from male residents or male people or anonymous trolls on social media. Am I wrong in that case? Natalie?
So I don't think you're necessarily wrong about that, but personally, I've been um, on the receiving end of quite a few women that are actually, just making comments kind of on the body shaming stuff, on the fact that I am in an executive role in my career and wondering if I'm able to even balance and manage the two jobs. It's not just for men. But I would say that there is that rhetoric that's out there. And I hate to give the orange man and across the border too much credit, but it really has created an insurgence on this side of the border as well. And it's really been influential to the point where we were making so many strides as women. When I was 35 and I was elected to office in a small town in Northern Ontario, I felt so supported. I felt that there was a concerted focus on getting gender parity in our different levels of government. And out of 5 on our municipal council, 4 of us were women that were elected to that council. It had never been seen before. And in Ontario, we topped the scales at about 58% for gender parity of women that were elected to office. That was back in the year 2010. I feel like those percentages, and I've been checking that out, it's really gone down since then. And I'll tell you what else happened around 2010. The influx of social media and Facebook just erupted, and where things were starting to feel safe in this space for us to have our seat at the table. Finally, after years and years and decades of so many other women who were trailblazers before us and giving us these opportunities, it started to go the other way again. And it really has shifted because of what's been allowed on social media, because of AI, because of the chat GBT, because of all these things. People can create things in memes, and there's nothing in our higher levels of government, regardless of what the provincial governments are trying to do to protect us. They're just stonewalled at getting something legislatively mandated so that people have some direct consequences for the behavior. So it does add up. Like, it really does. Like, the amount of time. So, just a regular time that it takes for us to do our jobs, whether it's a full-time position as an elected official or part-time, which really not ever part-time. When your community goes through a crisis, like what Alison did, or even myself recently with a storm event that has not been seen in our area for 70 years. The majority of people were very understanding, but there's still a loud cohort of people making a lot of noise online to disparage the way that things were handled and just attack our credibility. And it really does wear on you, where I took 4 personal vacation days from my career to devote myself 17 hours a day on the phone, emails, and just quashing all the misinformation that was going around on social media, because my community required that of me in this role. And my family took a back seat. My husband's been such a steadfast supporter and strength for me, but he sacrifices a lot. And again, people say, well, why don't you just quit? Why are you running again? Well, no, then that would make those people win. And I don't do second place in anything in my life. And if anything, it's made me have stronger conviction. But it really, really, at the heart of it, the crux of what's going on really does weigh heavily because of what's being allowed south of the border. And I hate to say, but extreme right-wing conservatives and us still coming out of the other side of what the pandemic did to us and dividing us as a society. So I think that really is playing a role.
So I want to pick
agree.
up with what Natalie said, and I want to point this question directly to Deputy to Alison, if you don't mind, because we talk about the legislative process of how to legislate this sort of out of existence. Now, the only reason I know this is because I'm the one who asked him the question, and he responded to me. So, in Manitoba last October, in the rural municipality of Taché, there was some horrible scenes where municipal politicians in effigy was hung at by a rope, and it was
Yes.
a Halloween thing, and people were like, oh,
Hmm.
it's just Halloween, but it was attacking the roles and responsibilities of the municipal councillors, both male and female. I should just clarify that for a second.
Hmm.
At the AMM convention in November, Wab Kinew, Premier of Manitoba, said this was horrible and we should all support it, which I agree we should. In a press conference right afterward, he talked about how do you legislate someone out of harassment? How do you tell people you can't harass somebody because they're always going to find a way through ChatGPT, through social media? It's going to be an ongoing
Hmm.
thing. It's a societal change that we need to start addressing, not just a social media change. We need to start changing the way that we look at people rather than how we interact with them. So, Alison, from your perspective, how do we get there? How do we get there where more women will be willing to step up to the plate? Because I've talked to a few municipal leaders in Manitoba in the last few weeks, and they've all told me, all female, I'm not running again because of the crap that I've had to deal with on a regular basis. And I've been there for 4 terms and I don't want to do it anymore. I've been there for 2 terms. I don't want to do that. I was there for a term. One counselor just told me, I don't want to do it anymore because I have more time and I would be able to contribute and get more money from the private sector than I am getting in this position, and I'm getting a lot more harassment. So, how do we fix this?
Wow, that is a huge question. And I don't think we're going to have any of the answers right now, but it definitely is a social construct that has taken decades, centuries to get to this point. I think we're coming to a head right now with social media. I believe that social media outlets need to be held more accountable. Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, all the things, TikTok, what not. I think if we have stricter policies about social media and what can be posted and what can't, other countries are starting to do that. If we take Australia, for example, minors under 16 are not allowed platforms, issues like that. So I think that's one way to start. I do agree that the leadership um, from the states has a huge influence on what's going. It is a platform to say that hate is okay. He's opened that can of worms that Natalie had referred to. That we worked really hard, especially after the Me Too movement. You could see some progress happening where women were being heard and given the seat and the platform, and that has just in the last 2 years been taken away. I also believe that if we continuously keep the narrative that it's not okay, I think women um, can really be leaders in that as well. We need to speak up more and have a better voice. I know if you just take, like, if we're talking Manitoba as well, Minister Fontaine and Minister Smith, both of their offices were targeted. And I find that interesting because just the female ministers were targeted. I give total credit to Nahanni Fontaine and Bernadette Smith as well. They spoke loud, and Nahanni Fontaine continues to post comments about that she receives and who the people are. I don't necessarily think if this is the way to go, but I feel like if we don't collectively as women have a voice to say that it's not okay, we're contributing to it. We need to talk about it more and say, you know what, this isn't okay. And it is true, as Natalie said, or sorry, that you had said, Chris, most 99% of my comments are men. It's typically not the women that comment about anything I'm doing. And it's unfortunate and sad because I will say this, in 3.5 years, I've met with more ministers and had more meetings than anybody did in the last 10 years on a previous council. And I guarantee nobody in our community is talking about that. But they're going to talk about how maybe my blazer looks like I don't have a top underneath during this interview. I was thinking about that as we're sitting here. This is the things that women think about, though. I was like, oh, this was a poor choice because, if I'm not sitting up properly or my camera shifts, it might appear that I'm not dressed appropriately, which really has no bearing on this conversation with all of us. But these are things that will come out. I think that RCMP also. I think the federal government should definitely have more strict policies and laws and to support harassment, because we can see out of harassment, true crime can happen. People can come into your homes, people can damage your homes, people get hurt. So I think having more of a conversation about it. Do I think it's going to change overnight? Absolutely not. Do I understand somebody not wanting to return because your mental health is more important? 100%. But I echo what Natalie is saying as well. I know my value and I know what I'm bringing to this community. And I think that's more important than what, snow remover 99 at gmail.com, because this is what they do. They make up emails, or, Flinty Batty Floniton 1975 is saying about me that has no merit about, that I might be a ridiculous idiot or whatnot. But I also think that men have the biggest role when it comes to changing the view of women in politics or at any actually platform or table. Men need to be the biggest advocates. They need to be louder than the person sitting next to them that does that little comment that might say, "Oh, did you see what they're wearing?" If they feed into these conversations. So I think men need to start policing each other, just like women hold each other accountable quite often, way more than men do to each other. It's a boys' club table, and we're trying to get to it. But leadership is really important to what that looks like. And so I totally agree with Natalie, 100%.
Melanie, for yourself in Alberta, we just saw a municipal election where there was a big turnover, both rurally and in urban municipalities. Some female leaders that I spoke to before the election said the vitriol that they saw at the doorstep when people walked up to them. They weren't asking about policy. It was like, how are you going to be able to balance the role of a municipal council with your full-time job or with your kids? Are you seeing in Alberta more and more female leaders not wanting to put their name forward again because it's just there's too much energy that they have to spend on dealing with the harassment that our male counterparts don't have to?
Uh, Definitely. I had conversations that, again, we had 15 candidates running in Stony Plain for council, which is a very large number for our municipality. And I had a female candidate phone me because she had received a phone call that she felt very upset about. This gentleman had called her asking her all these questions about her personal life, where she lived, what kind of vehicle she drove, things like that, what her husband does, is he not making enough money to support her that she feels she needs to go and do this, and things like that. This resident ended up phoning me shortly after that phone call with her, asking me similar questions, and I made it very clear to him that we could talk about municipal policy, we could talk about snow removal, we could talk about infrastructure, taxes, and I'd be more than happy to continue the conversation. Otherwise, him and I didn't need to converse anymore. And he would then ask a couple of political questions, but then he would go back to my kids and my family and wanting to know this extremely personal information. By the end of the phone call, when I wouldn't answer any more questions, he ended up just calling me a prostitute and saying that I might as well just go sell myself. And they're conversations I have on, I don't want to say on a regular basis, but they're conversations we do have. So part of my
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just because I feel like I've just like stopped listening after you said someone called you a prostitute.
Yeah, during the campaign.
Okay, continue. I apologize for interrupting there, but that shame on that person, first off, FYI, but continue on.
But it goes back to the comments that were made by Natalie and Alison. We spend time having to worry about, what am I wearing? How does the public perceive what I look like? Body shamed by women, sexualized by men. Like, you're going to get it from both sides. And so truly, there's not a whole lot that we've done, unfortunately, to protect ourselves. And I think it actually goes past politics. And
Yes.
this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, but look at our school system, right? We critique girls for wearing a tank top to school because it's going to distract the boys, instead of teaching the boys not to sexualize the student in a tank top, right? I'm not saying a tank top is school appropriate or not. I'm just saying it's always going to be the female's fault, unfortunately. Everything we do, for some reason, ends up being our fault, whether it's good or bad, right? Nobody will ever see the positive in it. And so as elected officials, I do feel get that more often than our male colleagues. And we do breakout sessions at AV Munis and FCM, and we talk about female in politics and how we're going to raise them up and support them. And it's great to see these rooms filled with hundreds of women, but talk is cheap at the end of the day. If we're not going to act upon it and we're not going to make it clear that this is not acceptable, we're going to continue to see women not put their name forward. We're going to continue to see women shelter themselves because it's safer not to be in the public's eye. It's safer to be at home or in an office surrounded by other people that can take that hit instead of you.
I'm cautious of time here, and I have two final questions, and I need all of you to answer them if possible. But one of them is more aimed towards Alison and Natalie, so I apologize, Melanie, but I do want to get your comments on it as well. Manitoba, Ontario, British Columbia, New Brunswick, all heading to the polls this year, literally to elect the next round of municipal leaders. For Natalie and Alison, what are you telling female leaders who approach you to do to get them prepared for what you have dealt with over the last 3.5 years, starting with Alison?
Like I had said in the intro, I think the number one question people that I know when we were being elected, because we basically were a full new council except for one person returning. We didn't really ask about the harassment component of it. Not at all. It didn't even dawn on me that this would be part of the job. I was very naive to that. I work in a sector that people like Natalie. I run a nonprofit, I run a food bank, and I own a business. And so I do things that people like. That wasn't in my head. It was more how much commitment and how much time. I absolutely would look at anybody considering running, especially females, and have that hard conversation. You can expect these kind of comments. Don't expect them to go away. Sometimes they'll be better and sometimes they'll be worse, but to be prepared. I think it's important that people are mentally prepared for what they're going to do so they can make an informed decision, whether they have the capacity or they want to do that. All of that being said, all three of us here have said this. We've had horrific things said to us. We've had people enter our personal space and make us feel unsafe, but not one of us has said, we still don't love this job. Not one of us have said that we feel proud and privileged to advocate for our community, to sit at a table with ministers and be able to discuss finances, snow removal, engineering, wastewater, mill rates. These are all learning curve things. And as everybody has said, you just have to inform yourself. So can anybody do this job? I don't want to say anybody because that's undermining how much effort it takes. But I do think that there's more value to gain to being part of running your community and being on a council than there is to not. I think it's a small part, the harassment. I think it's a large part. I think it takes more headspace and has really affected me in some ways, but I wouldn't change the role that I have right now. And hopefully I'll be able to do it for another 4 years based on what the community thinks. But I would definitely be telling any woman that wants to join that it's an opportunity to make real change and have leadership within your community and to be a great role model for other females. So it's a good and bad like any job.
Yeah, and then just to echo what Alison was mentioning, like here in Ontario, we're very fortunate. There's quite a few special interest groups like Politics Northern Ontario Women, so Politics Now. There's some groups through AMO and even FCM that has resource guides and supportive campaign preparation tools for folks that are, especially women that are wanting to step forward. I really encourage any woman at any age that wants to get involved to start that process by getting yourself informed and prepared by using those resources that are available, and also reaching out to other women that are already sitting at the table, not just around your own council, but in other communities. Women, we're here to support each other and encourage each other, and that we're always making ourselves available so we can make each other stronger and give each other other opportunities and open those doors. I have not had any females approach me yet in our city to say that they were wanting to step into a role. I've had a few younger guys and, you know, just my age too, approach me. I'd like to share those campaign tools with them as well. But when I was running in 2022, I had the outgoing counselor for my ward, the incumbent, kind of brief me and give me some pointers about things and certain individuals that I should probably be aware of. And I was kind of naive to that. And I thought, you know, like Alison, I worked in nonprofit. In my current role, I'm executive director of our regional food distribution center as well. So how cool is that? But it's an extension of service leadership beyond what we're doing in our careers that's bringing us into these leadership roles. And I honestly was a bit naive to think, oh, you know, it's not going to be that bad. But it was that bad. And it really has taken its toll on me mentally, physically. Like, you're just exhausted and tired, and you're just wondering, when's the next shoe going to drop? Is somebody that mentally unwell or unstable or obsessed with you that something else is going to happen? Is there a catalyst? You know, here in Greater Sudbury, we have a few people using social media to rage bait incessantly, spreading misinformation and disinformation to get people riled up. All you need is one person that's not okay to react and retaliate. And then we're the sitting ducks. We're the ones that are going to have that retaliation. It doesn't feel well. It doesn't make me feel safe in the work that we're doing. And it's a distraction to the good work that we're doing. But I have so many women that come to me of all ages. I recently had a young girl approach me and say, you know, I've been watching from the sidelines for a while. I'm only 22, but, you know, municipal government and civics is so interesting to me. I want to make sure that I'm prepared for when I'm ready. Can I mentor under you? Absolutely, you can mentor under me. And, you know, I started a youth advisory panel with our city a couple years ago. We have quite a few young girls that are on there. They're going to be our future leaders, and we have to really show them the positive side. There's an ugly side to politics, and so many people say to me, I don't know how you do it, Natalie. And it is hard. If it wasn't hard, everybody would be doing it. We really are set apart from other people in the work that we're doing, and we have to consistently put that message out and work together so that we are empowering our future leaders and not allowing this distraction of what's been allowed to happen take over and derail all of the purposeful work and important work that's been done over the decades and able to allow us to be at the table that we're at right now.
I have about 3 minutes left, so I need everyone to sum up the last question into 30 seconds to 45 seconds if possible. Now, I'm going to say you've been dealt a shitty hand, and I know that's not the word I should use, but we will bleep it in post-production. You have been dealt a hand where you've all had to deal with harassment in one form of another, through the court systems that have backlogged and still waiting for the results of what that's going to happen, through an emergency wildfire where people are willing to say whatever they want on social media, through in-person discussions with provincial leaders. This is not what we should do. This is how we should not act as a society. But give me a glimmer of hope that things could get better, or does it get worse before it gets better, in your opinion? Melanie, let's start with you.
I would love to give you that glimmer of hope, but I do think we're going to get worse before we're going to get better, unfortunately. But I do believe that walking away isn't going to fix it. Change is only going to happen when we show up and when we stay the course. Very capable of doing this job. I do love this job. And if anybody were to ask, I would let them know that they're more capable than they think. We don't know what we can handle until we have no other choice. Wouldn't change it for the world. Love what I do. Love representing men, women, children, everybody in between in my community. And I would do it a day over again and again. There's my 30 seconds for you.
Oh, I have to agree with Melanie. I think right now, with everything that's going on, that's bigger than us in the world, it is not going to get better overnight, that's for sure. But I agree. I wouldn't change it for a second. There's definitely more support than hate. And to sound cheesy, love is the way to go, not hate. And I think it can be louder. And like we've all said, it's a privilege to sit at this table, and we are. I'm lucky enough that I have tremendous family support and community support for a lot of people, not just haters. So I try to focus on that. I do think the more we talk about it and the more that we call out bad behavior, that will change it. So I appreciate you giving us this platform to have this conversation today.
Natalie, for yourself, same question, but I'm going to add a little caveat to it. You talked about gender parity 10, 15 years ago being pretty high in Ontario, and now it's not as high as it once was. Do you have hope that one day we'll get back to gender parity, not just in Ontario, but across Canada?
Absolutely, Chris. And you know, there's a fantastic movement that Mayor Marianne Mead Ward from Burlington, Ontario started called Elect Respect. It's a pledge for anyone who sees the harassment to speak out about it. It's not just about electing respect to your elected officials, but how we're communicating with each other online outside of that. Any kind of civic issues or community issues, or you're seeing the loudest, most negative voices. My inbox is full of people, men and women, that say, I really wish I had the courage to speak up for this because I'm with you 100% on this issue, Councillor, but I just don't want to get attacked. I really just want to encourage people, check out electrespect.ca. Reach out to people that you know that are going to be some strong proponents with courage to speak out against it. And you're going to start seeing a shift. There's a string of negativity that's out there, and sometimes you just need 1, 2, 3 people, whether it's men or women, to counter that, and next thing you know, that conversation's done. It just derails it. So I'm just encouraging people to make that pledge. If you see it, talk about it, and we're going to start changing that shift, and we're going to see more people joining in and just having that courage to step into office, whether it's at a municipal level, provincial, federal politics. We need more women. We need more capable leaders who are emotionally connected. It's not a weak spot to be emotional. Service leadership is about connecting with people, building relationships, and being there for your community and doing important work. And these things are just a distraction. I think we're bigger than that. There's so much positive things going on in our communities, and I love to share that on all of my social media networks. These are the fantastic things. People will say, oh, it's just a photo op. Absolutely. It's an opportunity, a photo opportunity to showcase the great things that are happening. We've got wonderful volunteers and people who are doing great things. Those are also potential future leaders. So if we can show up, lead by example, and not back down, we are going to be part of that change.
Well, councillors, deputy mayor, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending time with me today and spending time with my audience and our viewers to talk about harassment. This is the first part of a 3-part series around harassment that the Cross Border Network is doing. So I'm so honored that you were able to be honest and raw and just candid about your experiences and how we move forward. So thank you all so very, very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for tuning in for another edition of Municipal Affairs, the show where we take a closer look at the people, the policies, and the practical decisions shaping local governments across Canada. Now, each episode of the show is designed to dig beneath the headlines and bring forward real conversations about the challenges and opportunities facing municipalities of all sizes. Now, if today's discussion was useful, thought-provoking, we encourage you to subscribe to the show. Leave a review, share this episode with your colleagues, your council members, or any municipally minded individual who believes in strong local governance. Visit crossbordernetwork.ca to learn about how you can join an upcoming episode and contribute to the national conversation on local affairs. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you again for tuning in for another edition of Municipal Affairs.